Okay, so now we're going to transition to the portion of our webinar that many attendees find the most valuable, which is hearing directly from someone with firsthand experience. So we're pleased to introduce Reeve Josh Bishop, who currently serves as the Reeve of the County of Wetaskiwin. Reeve Bishop he brings a strong commitment to community, agriculture, and rural development. Elected by his fellow councillors, Reeve Bishop plays a vital leadership role in shaping the county's policies and advocating for residents across the region. Rooted in a deep understanding of rural issues, Reeve Bishop has been an active voice on council, focused on improving infrastructure, supporting local industry, and ensuring transparent and accountable governance. With a background in small business and experience on volunteer boards, he brings both practical insights and collaborative approach to municipal leadership. So for the next 25 minutes or so, Reeve Bishop will share some of his insights and experiences and answer your questions, which can be popped in the Q&A portal at on your screen. If you don't see the Q&A, just look for the three little dots and you can open it up there. So Reeve Bishop, thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe to start, tell us a little bit about your community and think back to when you were first deciding to run and put your name on the ballot. What were a couple of the reasons why you ultimately made the decision to put your name forward for elected office?
Well, good afternoon, and thanks for having me here. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to take this first important step and find out what it's all about. As far as my journey here into municipal government, it was kind of more or less by accident. I think I was driven at the time. More of my frustration was probably towards the provincial government, and I didn't really necessarily have an agenda myself coming into the municipal government other than I need to do something because I'm not happy with the way things are going. There was a municipal election coming up, and I figured, you know what, I'll do that. At least that's I'm going to be putting my name out there. Everyone always says you sort of, if you want to have a right to complain, you better put your name forward and do something about it. So I did want to have the right to complain. So now I'm on the other end of it, and I get to listen to what I don't call complaints so much as feedback. They're telling me what needs to happen. So
Great. That's great. Yeah, and that's, a lot of that's a really great kind of way to look at it is like if you see that there needs to be something done, put your name forward and try and do it. And um, so we're going to start high level here. What what have been some of the most rewarding aspects of serving on council, and maybe what are some of the more challenging aspects?
okay, for rewarding, I think you'll get to meet a lot of great people. There'll be exposure to a lot of things that you won't get any other way. You'll have access to certain boards that you'll be able to represent your municipality on and have influence in that way. It's great when you can see projects through. That's a real kind of feather in your cap sometimes when you're on there long enough to see these long-term projects actually come to fruition. For
Mm,
many of us, though, we won't be around. Like we set things in motion, and 5 years from now, you'll see the results of that. But luckily for me, I've been on for 2 terms. So this second term, I'm really starting to see some of the changes that we made come to fruition, and that's rewarding. As far as some of the challenges go, I think it's very difficult for people who don't have all the information that we have to understand why some of the decisions are made. And so the difficulty you'll find is that people will look at a decision that's made, but they don't know necessarily the conversations that happened around that. So
mhm,
something that maybe somebody voted against, they think, oh, well, they're not in support of that. Well, they might have
Mm.
voted against a motion because they wanted it to go further, right? Which you wouldn't really capture if you're just looking at the minutes. So I think unless you're going to have an actual conversation with the people that made those decisions, so the councillors, I think that's our biggest struggle is that people won't understand why we made those decisions, and they'll just make assumptions, and then you're left trying to defend with the wrong context in mind.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. Lots of people are intimidated the first time that they run for council or the first time they're elected with the idea of the amount of work. So when you think back when you were first elected, how confident were you in your like public speaking or ability to
Oh,
read large technical reports. And what was that learning curve like? And what support did you lean on when you were first elected?
so the learning curve is steep. Everyone always kind of refers to it as the fire hose, drinking from the fire hose. That's kind of what it feels like. You'll get thrown so much information off the start that you just won't be able to absorb it all. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're having to go through the same courses even a few times before you really understand it. Just so much comes at you at once, but that's a bit of a struggle. Sorry, if you want to repeat that question, I think there was three different kind of areas you were talking about.
Yeah, just like the level of technicality sometimes in reports, the public speaking confidence, and the learning curve.
Yeah, so the reports, it's a little bit intimidating sometimes, because like in my business experience, like if I was dealing with $1 million to $2 million, that was a really good year for me, dealing with that kind of volume. To all of a sudden be into budgets of $50 million, and there's just so much more to that, that it was a little bit intimidating. But there's all kinds of resources, and the staff are great. And really, the other counselors that were incumbents, they were patient with us. I asked a ton of questions, and I probably slowed the meetings down way more than they would have liked. But I think if you have a good council, they'll allow you that leeway to do that, and you'll slowly but surely come along. As far as the public speaking goes, I hated public speaking, and I still don't really like it. But that's one of the things. I never ever dreamt that I was getting into politics. So in like the social studies, when we had like the debate type stuff, right? Like I was always the kid in the back of the class saying like, I will never need to use this ever.
Mhm.
So I came in with basically none of that experience. The first time I ever had to get up to a mic in a big group, I think there was about 1,500 people at like a conference, and I got up to speak to on an issue, and I got completely flustered because like you get a little bit stressed out in that size of room. Everyone's chatting all around you, and it's kind of distracting. And then I had feedback from the monitor. It was a disaster. But lo and behold, a few years later, now I'm up on the podium of that same conference. So you'll be able to weather the storm and figure it out. And it's going to push your comfort zone in many ways, but I think we're all here for the right reasons, and you want to do better for your community. So you'll step up and do the things that take you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
Great.
definitely. So much of it is just practice, right? To keep doing those things. For you, especially in a rural municipality, how important is it to build and foster relationships with the region that surrounds you and also to do advocacy work with other levels of government, like your provincial or federal representatives? What's your experience been like with that?
So for me, it's every year I've sort of understood more, and it's almost like one of those things where the more you know, the more you understand how much you don't know.
Hmm.
And you've learned like, oh, I never thought of that before. And as I learn about the next issues, you're like, oh man, there's all kinds of other stuff. So in the past, we have never been a municipality that does a lot of advocacy. And slowly but surely, we've been increasing that capacity. And over the last couple of years, we've really focused on it. And myself, I've really invested my time into the advocacy. It's a very important role, especially if you want to get anything done, like provincial government through grants, through changes in legislation. You need to develop those relationships. It's critical. And for a rural municipality, when you're looking at your neighbors and stuff, we have agreements with all of our neighbors. And because we're so large, we have several neighbors where like our urban municipality, which would be a comparable in population and budget, they have like one intermunicipal collaboration framework to do. They have one intermunicipal development plan to do, and that's with us, the county. Now, we have 14 of those to do because we have so many other municipalities that we connect with. So our workload on that end is actually substantially more than the urban. So building relationships takes time, and we have to do that times 14 in our case.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally. Like there's a different context from a rural municipality perspective, as opposed to just a like a a more urban setting. I wanted to pull on a little bit of a thread you responded to a couple questions ago around the length of time in which kind of takes to get things done. And was that a bit of a misconception? And it's okay if it wasn't, but a misconception for you going into your role on council of just like not really understanding or having an awareness of how long sometimes it takes to get things done from a governance perspective. And is that a challenge on council, like having to go through the process and sometimes things take a few years to you start to see like even the fruits of your labor? And what other misconceptions
Absolutely.
were out there?
Absolutely, and I kind of probably thought I could do a little more than you actually could off the start, and it's going to depend on your team, your council members and your administration. Everybody has a hand on that rope, and if we're not all pulling in the same direction, which is often the case because people have different priorities, different ideas, then things are going to get slowed down because you're dragging some people along that are pulling back, and maybe there's some good reasons for that. Putting the brakes on things that doesn't always hurt, but you'll have certain issues that everyone's in agreement on, and you can actually get those done very quickly. If your administration is in alignment, then things will move very quickly as well. If they're on different page than you, then sometimes things will take a back seat, and there's other priorities. So sometimes there's those kind of little battles that occur of placing a priority on this, because like you mentioned in your presentation, like as a governance body, we can't control the day to day. So we might make a broad policy decision, but we try to avoid those very prescriptive resolutions that that you must do this, because that starts to tread into territory where we're outside of the MGA. There's certain things that you can do, but yeah, it was for me a learning curve of what you actually can get accomplished and what you can't. So we're fortunate now that we have pretty much aligned in our broader big vision goals. Our administration has become very cohesive to our vision as a council. Now we're just going into an election, so we'll see if that stirs things
Yeah.
up. But over the last 2 years, I'd say we've seen the most movement that I've seen out of the 8 years that I've been. By far the most movement has been in the last two.
Great. And I'll pull on that a bit more in terms of as a counselor or mayor or Reeve, sorry, you have one vote and your vote is equal to your colleagues on council. So you need some friends to come with you if you want to move your agenda items forward, and prioritize them. Like, how do you build those relationships with your colleagues to move things that you care about forward, and administration as well? And then what kind of like if they don't agree with you, like how do you deal with that essentially if there's disagreement?
So we've kind of focused on that, I think, as our council a little bit, by like building the relationship first of we're all in this for the right reasons. We're going to disagree. Like even myself, I'm elected by my peers. That's the way we do it with the Reeve. So I have the support of everybody as the head spokesperson for my municipality, but I am still on the wrong side of a 6-1 vote from time to time. So it's not
Hmm.
like what I say goes. That actually has happened recently, and I'm like, I think everybody else is wrong. They think I'm wrong, but you know what? Let's go out for lunch after, and we'll move on. So from the very start, we try to make sure that we're doing some of those social events that we can have conversations, we can disagree, but at the end of the day, there's been very few times where we haven't been able to go out for lunch after, like in midway through a council meeting or something, where somebody got a little bit ruffled feathers. But most of the time, if you're able to do that as a council, you'll be able to accomplish way more. As soon as you start having some infighting and stuff like that, you'll end up with somebody maybe voting down a perfectly good resolution simply because you put it forward. So it's kind of on everybody individually that, let's not take things personally. Let's avoid the personal attacks, whether you like what somebody does or not. I think you have to put that aside and say, let's vote on the issue. That's worked well for us. So that's the advice I'd give other people.
Right. No, that's good advice. I hope we didn't scare anyone away in our presentation on the time commitment. Some people get overwhelmed thinking it's a lot of time. So I think we have a two-part question for you, which is when you did decide to run, what kinds of conversations were important to have, like with your employer or with your friends and family about what that commitment was going to look like? And now, how do you balance your personal life and responsibilities with your council duties and responsibilities?
Not very well. I'm an all-in guy. I've always been
That's a
with
common
whatever I've
response.
been doing. So like I used to coach football for quite a number of years, and same thing. I'd throw my entire life into, like, if I'm putting my name in forward to do something, I want it to be as best as I can. So I'll invest all that time. So that's something my family has always known about me. So when I talked about this, I did talk to them, and the only comments they would give back to me were like, so you're adding this, what are you dropping? Because I do
Hmm.
so many things. And so I didn't want to drop anything. So I kept doing more, and then you just add to your plate. Eventually I came to the realization I had to drop a couple different things that you can't. But as far as investigating what time commitment it would be, I did spend quite a bit of time with the CEO or CAO beforehand, and talked with like the returning officer, talked with some of the councillors. I attended council meetings, so I was fairly confident I had a good idea of what I was getting myself into. But the people I was talking to didn't necessarily know my personality either. So they thought, well, it's about this amount of time. And when I got into it, like, I would never want to not understand what I'm voting on. So every single
Yeah.
link that they put in the agenda, I'd read through every link, and man, you could go down a rabbit hole of information. And it should take you a day to prepare for the agenda for a meeting. It was taking me 3 days, and we have several meetings, and so it was eating up tons of time just because I wanted to be prepared. But as time goes on, you don't need to re-click that link. It's just included again, so you'll start to recall some of that information, so it gets less. But for myself, Reeve has a little bit more duty, so it's basically full-time
Yeah.
job with that. And then I'll do some other work if I have time, but so I can do council meetings, agendas, and stuff like that. I can do that in the evening, and that's usually when I would do it. So if you want to work a little bit in the day, you can do that. But the one thing I would say that people maybe wouldn't realize is that when you say 10 to 20 hours a week, it's not consistent like that. So there'll be times where you might only have 5-10 hours a week, but there'll be other weeks where you are full time, and like it's every single day,
Yeah.
all day, like especially into the November. That's budget time,
Budget.
strategic planning. There's conference. Basically, it's a hard to hold down another job during November. So you'll definitely have to have some flexibility in your job and to do what we do as our type of rural municipality.
Yeah. So just kind of keeping on theme with the public life and the balance, smaller communities and rural communities are, often quite tight knit, and a lot of folks know each other in the communities. Um, you make decisions for the community, and sometimes they might not be popular. So how do you handle public criticism when that public criticism may be coming from your network or your friends? Um, how do you kind of balance those two, or do you? And like, what kind of conversations do you have around that?
I think most of the time, like I avoid the social media. Basically, I just started getting on it a little bit, where like I will put out things mostly in a positive light. If I'm going
Yeah,
to interact with somebody, I want to do it face to face or on the phone or something, because like you said, like the internet just makes things so easy, so fast for people to make quick comments, ill-informed, and not have the full context. And you can't win. You'll never win those battles. I've even to the point where I used to get really worried about being misquoted and stuff. Like
yeah,
even the paper, oftentimes they'll misquote things, and sometimes quite drastically. I don't think they're doing it on purpose, but just it happens. you just can't chase that down. It happens so often that I pretty much ignore it, and I will talk to people as if they raise concerns. I'd love to chat with them and say, here's why we went down this road. But as far as getting ahead of it, it's too difficult. I put it in
Mm.
the basket of too hard because you
Mm.
can't change some people's minds anyway.
Totally.
Maybe we'll switch gears for the last couple minutes here and make you think about campaigns. So, when you think back to your first campaign, is there any advice that you would give to first-time candidates, especially for a rural county? Sometimes the land you have to cover is quite a large space. So, what do you think are some of the best ways to get your name out there or to connect with voters so they'll remember you on the ballot?
That's a good question, because one of the things is you're going to face a lot of people who don't want you there at all. You're going to face a lot of people who have dogs that don't want you there, but then you're also going to come across some people that will be so happy that you showed up to their door. It's a very important step to get out and talk to people. But one of the things that you mentioned there is make sure you know what you're talking about. If you're making commits that you physically just you cannot do, that kind of can put you in a spot when it comes around the next time. Well, you said this and this, and then you found out, well, you couldn't do that, so you're not able to deliver on your promises. You are only one vote, so you need to get 3 other people at least to agree with your ideas. So when you have a bunch of people out campaigning on different priorities, you're going to get a rude awakening when you come to your strategic planning and think that you can accomplish a bunch of things that you can't. So I'd be very limited in your campaign promises and more listening to what people have to say, because that's what's more important. Really, I kind of look at, like, when I go campaigning, I'm not really campaigning unless they specifically ask me to. Like, some people will say, okay, what's your pitch? And then so you have to have something prepared. But most of the time I'm out there to find out, okay, what are we doing? And I think in this case, I'm going to come in, what are we missing? What haven't we done? What are you seeing that we need to do? Most often it will be something local in their area. And as a rural municipality, you'll have big ridings. So it might be a road that's 20 miles, 50 miles away from your house. Depends how big your riding is. But like, so it'll be very localized issues a lot of times. And you just got to listen to them and see what those issues are, because you might not be aware. They might never have phoned you to tell you. So.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. People appreciate being listened to during the campaign period. And you do want to be careful about making promises because, from your experience, sometimes it can take time to get things done on council. So you don't want to overpromise. We do have another question from the audience. So, do you have the power? This is kind of going to that management and governance piece of being in a council role. Do you have the power as a counselor to increase services? Like, if you want to invest more you want to do more snow clearing, is that something that's in council's control, or what's that balance and relationship and decision making like?
That's exactly the things that we're supposed to be focused on. So you can't, as an individual, make that decision, but council as the whole will set the direction. So and that you can get fairly prescriptive when you're talking levels of service. You can get fairly prescriptive in that, and you say, you know what, we want to have all the snow cleared within 24 hours. You can say that as a level of service. That's our level of service. Our residents can expect that your snow will be cleared within whatever it is. Ours is 72 hours simply because we have 2,000 kilometers of roads. It's just not feasible to do in 24
Yeah.
hours. But I mean, we could, but how much do you want your taxes to raise? And I'm a taxpayer
Yeah.
myself. I don't want to raise taxes enough to accomplish those goals. But yeah, those are the types of things that you should be looking at. You do absolutely hold the purse strings on the budget, but once you've approved that budget, a lot of the authority you've at that point deferred to administration, as long as you can set parameters of, let them do certain changes, as long as it's not changing a level of service, for example, or if they want to transfer from one department to another, that should be a council decision. But overall, if everything's staying within their allocations, they have authority to deal with that.
Great. I think that's an important reminder. Yes, you can
Mhm.
increase services, but it often is tied to your budget. And that's an important thing to learn. Okay, Reeve Bishop, thank you so much for joining us today. It's amazing that you gave us this opportunity over everyone's lunch hour, because not everyone gets the chance to get mentorship directly from people who are currently elected. Do you have a last minute elevator pitch or any piece of advice you'd like to give to people who are thinking about running today?
I think just if you feel that this is something that you want to do, just go for it. Even if you're running against an incumbent, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of times somebody who's in there right now ran against an incumbent at one point, so don't let that deter you. I think it's good for some new ideas to come in, and just go in with the right mindset that we're going to try and make the best of it. If you come in with too heavy of a hammer, you're going to find that you're not going to be able to get anything done because you'll alienate yourself. So I think not being agreeable, being questioning, that's okay, and just being a team player will be important.